there are three things that coaches look for from their athletic teams every time they take to the court. One is effort. If everyone gives a good effort, you can't lose. Two is respect. Respect from your peers, respect from your opponents. And three, if all goes well, you score more points than the other team when time runs out. This past week, the IPFW basketball team had two chances to show all of those features. Now, in this week's Mastodon Spotlight, we'll see how it turned out. It's Mastodon Spotlight, and it's coming up next.
Today's teenagers, the way people talk, you'd think they can't do anything right. It's just not so. We get to know over 300,000 kids a year, smart kids who know what they want. They believe in themselves, and they believe in America. Some go straight to college. Others choose to learn leadership, discipline, courage, and commitment first with us. Today's military, making a stronger America, one good kid at a time.
Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Moss. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as I said a moment ago, coaches look for a lot of things from their teams when they take to the floor or take to the field. And our guest today, we welcome back the head men's basketball coach here at IPFW, Doug Knoll. And Doug, first and foremost, welcome back. We missed you a couple of weeks ago, but you did have an able replacement in Joe Pachota.
Yeah, we sure did. I was wondering when I got back if I was supposed to be here or Joe did such a good job, you just wanted him back. But yeah, it was great for Joe to fill in. I was on the road recruiting, and it's a great experience for him also for when he becomes a head coach and some of the things he needs to do. So thanks for having him on, and I know he did a great job.
Also, thank you for coming in this morning, because speaking of recruiting, you were on the road again last night, and as you mentioned, a long drive back from out of state, and glad to see you're back safe and sound, especially with the snow that we had overnight and this morning. Effort, respect, and hopefully victory. Those are the three topics of the day. And last week you had two opportunities to achieve all three of those goals. We'll talk about those two games in this segment. First, last Thursday night, you took on SIU Edwardsville here at the Hilliard Gates Center. A chance for revenge also, because when you played back in late November, early December, unfortunately you lost. And so it was payback time Thursday night. And let's talk about that game first, how the game evolved and how things turned out.
Well, Mike, looking back at Southern Illinois, the first time we played them, we were probably only into our fifth, sixth game of the season. We had a very young basketball team at that point. We're still very young, but we feel like now our freshmen have moved on a little bit. But looking back at that game, we had lost a tough game at Southern Indiana on our road swing. In fact, had a shot with about a minute and a half to go against Southern Indiana to cut it to 5, and we missed the shot, which kept it at 8, and later fouled them down the stretch, and I think they won by 13. Then we went to Southern Illinois, and they had what I thought was a pretty good basketball team. Nothing great, but they rebounded the basketball very well, especially on the offensive glass, and led the league for a good part of the year on the offensive glass. We got into that game and really played well for spurts of the game. In fact, with about 5 minutes to go in the game, we had a 7-point lead. But being a young team and early in the season, we ended up kind of making some key mistakes down the stretch, not finishing the game like we wanted to, and they beat us. They were at home, we were on the road, and it was a tough loss for us. I think that's one of the games we look back at and say shoulda, coulda, woulda, but didn't, and that's their only conference win. Since that time, they've lost a few players to academics. I don't know if another player either quit, got kicked off the team, but they're a completely different team than they were. They've struggled a lot. Unlike us, we've struggled, but in different ways. We've struggled with youth and experience and finishing games, but we've been in most of our games. In the last 4 games, we've gone 1-3, but 2 of them on the road we lost by 6 and 8 points, and then to Southern Indiana by 2. So those games, have come down to 1-2 possessions at the end of the game, and we still need to do a better job. But you can see the maturation of our team and our young kids as we're going. I told the guys when we played there, I said, you do get respect in this league. Forget the records, forget what we've done in the past. I think people in this league respect you because now you've started to make that effort, which you touched on, and that you are playing hard every time out, and that we can win. We have a chance to win every game when we go there. It's just about that 40 minutes of effort, 40 minutes of competing, and then executing some of the things that we want, and then give yourself a chance in the last 5 minutes to be in the ball game, and then hopefully good things will happen. So we were pleased at the Southern Illinois game. We had 4 in double figures, led by Brad Knoll with 19. Keon Henderson and our bench really played well. I think Keon had 12 or 14 points, if I'm not mistaken, 14 maybe. And Matt Shepard came off the bench and played well. We've put him back on the bench to give us a little more strength and scoring power and rebounding off the bench. So it was a game for us that we needed badly. We needed to win and we needed to play well. And I think at one point in time down the stretch we had a 24-point lead. We ended up winning by about 14 or 15, so a good start to the week for us.
You alluded, and it's one of the things I wanted to talk about, the bench play. Your final score was 81-66, and we did have the 4 players in double figures. But briefly comment more, Doug, on how important it is for the other players that do come in off the bench, how well they contribute. Because in this SIUE game, they scored 24 points. 18 of them came in the first half, and you mentioned Keon Henderson, 14 points overall, but 10 in the first half, 4 of 4, 2 deuces, 2 trays out of 4 shots. How nice is it from a coaching perspective, is it to see the players who don't start, don't get the glory in the sense of starting lineup and so forth, to come in off the bench and contribute?
Yeah, from our perspective, we've always talked about starting is an ego thing. I mean, you get your name announced, you get to run out and everything. But really, I've always said, give me a kid who says, Coach, I just want to finish. Because you usually have your best players in at the end of the game. Not always the starters, but your best players. And with the way the game transcends to the end, that dictates who's in the game, the matchups, things like that. So we've been pleased as of late with our bench. Matt Shepard started most games through the first part of the year, and we really felt like we needed some extra punch off of our bench. We wanted our bench to score maybe 20-25% of our points, and we were not getting that. And of course, Keon's been injured both years since he's been here, with a back last year and this year a foot, and so he's kind of struggled, but now he's starting to find himself. Very good athlete, he jumps very well, and he can do some things that others can't do and fill a role and a void for our team. And now he's starting to do that. He's getting some confidence, and he really did that in the Southern Illinois game. He came back and actually had double figures at Southern Indiana too, but his confidence has risen. He's more comfortable with his shooting. I think at one point in time he was about 2 of 14 from 3 during the year, and so I always felt like he needs to concentrate more on the slashing to the basket, the pull-up jump shot. But that, with Matt Shepard coming off the bench and giving us a lift, Nick Euler in Thursday's game, I think, had double figures with 11, and those guys giving us that that punch off the bench has really improved our basketball team to where we can't just rely on 2 or 3 people over and over, and so that's been really big for our stretch drive here in the months of January and February, and Keon hopefully will continue to get better. He's got to get more physical. He's got to get a little tougher. Got to get a little meaner, and that's hard for him to do. He's such a nice kid, but he's got to improve from those parts of his game to elevate to that 10-12 points a game and maybe 3 or 4 rebounds, 5 rebounds that he can get.
As we say, final score 81-66. That set things up for last Saturday's game, a game we broadcast on College 56, IPFW taking on conference leader and number 2 ranked Southern Indiana. You mentioned you played them well down in Evansville back on the 30th of November and ended up losing 94-81. But realistically, number 2 team coming into your building, what kind of a chance did you and your staff and your team think you really had against them before the tip-off?
Well, believe it or not, we thought that if we could be in the game in the last 5 minutes, anything can happen. And in the 2 years that I've been here, in the 4 games that we've played against them, we've really only played one bad half, and that was the very first game last year here, where they took a lead of 50-30 on us. And we were just overwhelmed and intimidated by them. And when you see them come out on the court and see their players, you are intimidated. I mean, they've got a Division I program. And I mean, they've got kids that have signed with Division I teams that weren't able to get into school there. Bruce does a great job with them. In fact, in the Dunkel rating of 1,300 Division I, II, IIIs and small colleges NAIA, they were ranked 88th this year, whereas Ball State was ranked 96th. So they are ranked ahead of almost 225 or 30 Division I programs, and they're that good. But we really felt like we've played them well. We played them well, at their place last year. We played them well at their place again this year, other than their quick starts, and that's what's hurt us. They've always had quick starts against us. Down at their place this year, we beat them in the last 33 minutes of the game, but you've got to take into consideration it's a 40-minute game, and so they jumped out to like an 18-4 lead on us, and then we had to battle back and actually outscored them in the second half. And that's kind of the focus that we had going into this game. No quick starts. Let's play with them the first 10 minutes out of the gate and really come out and give ourselves a chance down the stretch. And as I look at it, we were pleased with the outcome, pleased with the way we played, and yet very frustrated because we're always so close, and we just can't get over the hump, and there's always one area that we fall short on, and in that game, turnovers with 23 were a key, and when we had them in bunches, and we had a couple 7-0, 8-0 runs that we had to, before we could get a timeout, it was 8-0 run. And then the free throw shooting really killed us. I mean, we missed 9 in the second half, but we missed a front end, which we count as 10. And when you lose by 2, and we had a shot at the buzzer at the end, so it was kind of maybe a 5-point game. But even that, if you look at it, and as well as we shot the ball, if you give yourself a chance to shoot the ball, we were shooting almost 60%. And so, with 23 turnovers, that's 23 times you didn't get a shot off. And if we would have got a shot off half those times, the way we're shooting, we'd have made over half those shots. And so as a coach, you're really frustrated from that standpoint. You feel bad for the kids because, free throws are a small fundamental that, if you make, you can win a lot of games, or you can win a lot by holding a lead when teams foul you in the end. And we've always preached that. We've tried to be a good free throw shooting team. We're at about 73, which I think we could be higher. We started out at 80 during the year. But for fans and everything, it was a great college basketball game. The fans cheered our guys after the game. And, we were very competitive. They gave us a lot of kudos. And, yes, we did play very well. But, from a coaching standpoint, close, only counts in a few other things, as we well know. And moral victories don't count either at this point. We need to win those games. And but effort is non-negotiable, and we did make an effort, and we've talked about that for most of the year, and we're getting better at that.
We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to come back to this ball game, and we've got a couple of highlights that we want to show our viewers, and want to ask what the coaches' thoughts. There were critical points in the ball game, which, had they gone the other way, may have spelled upset of number 2. But we'll take a look at those highlights, again talk about this game, and also look ahead because we've got some tough games coming up. And that will happen when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
Dr. Hermine Van Nuys is a professor who teaches her English literature classes with passion to inspire her students.
I'm very passionate about what I teach. I love the literature I teach, and I'm very proud of the faculty in my department.
Her 30 years of dedication to IPFW has earned her much respect on the collegiate level.
We offer really a wonderful English major, I think, with a number of opportunities. There really is much more, I think, probably a personal relationship established in our classes because they tend to be smaller.
Because of her experience, Dr. Van Nuys recognizes IPFW's advantages over other universities.
Students here can come to our offices. They will be seen by us. We speak to them, which is the ideal way, I think, to teach.
IPFW, the right school, right here, right now.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Our guest today, the head men's basketball coach here at IPFW, Doug Nolan. Doug, we've been talking, just before the break, we were talking about the game last Saturday against Southern Indiana. And I know you talked about the effort, and those who were in attendance or watched on College 56 Sports know that the final score was 110 to 108, Southern Indiana on top. But I want to go back, and as I mentioned before the break, we've got a couple of highlights. Highlights that critical events that took place at critical times, which truthfully I think had an outcome on the game. And the first highlight that we're going to show comes in the second half. USI was ahead 64 to 62, and it was between 12 and 13 minutes left, but it was back and forth. You talked about the big start that USI had down in Evansville, getting up 18 to 4. Well, this game here Saturday went back and forth. And they had a lead, we came back, we had a lead, they made a little run at the end of the first half, and we made the final 2 points of the half to go into the locker room, only trailing by 4 at 42-38. And it was back and forth the first part of the second half. But if John has the first highlight up on the monitor, 64-62, they've got the ball, they're going to take a shot, and go ahead. What's going to happen is we're going to get a rebound. And you can see Dwight Crow with the ball and trying to secure position and the ball, and the elbows come out, and boom, one of their players gets hit in the chops and goes down. Foul was called. The reason we call your attention to that play is Southern Indiana got the ball. Instead of us having the ball, a chance to go down and either tie or take the lead, they get the ball back. They converted, and then they forced 2 turnovers. And in less than 55 game seconds, the score went from 64-62 USI to 73-62 USI, and you had to call a timeout or two. Talk about that play and then the ensuing minute following.
Well, on that particular play, Dwight got a big rebound for us, and there was a lot of bodies just everywhere. And we do not condone dirty play whatsoever, but we do want physical, tough play. And I've been harping at somebody that if somebody can get a rebound and clear somebody out this year, I'll applaud them, because the one thing that we've missed this year with our program is rebounding, and tough rebounding in traffic, and really being strong with the basketball. And what Dwight did, I wasn't upset, but I was kind of disappointed in the call because of the fact that Dwight didn't take his hands off the ball. He had actually had his arms wrapped around the ball, and he was just trying to gain space. And with everybody all over him, if you look back on the replay, the player that took the foul actually kind of stuck his face into the mix. And if you're going to do that, you're going to get hit sooner or later. I really felt like that Dwight didn't do anything wrong. He was just trying to clear himself and separate himself from that group, and he didn't take his hand off the ball. He didn't swing an elbow, but he was just trying to create space with the rebound, which we want to teach. Get your elbows wide, because if they get hit once, they're probably not going to get hit again. And that's the mark of a good rebounding team, and we're not a good rebounding team. We have to continually work on those things. So I wasn't upset at Dwight at all. In fact, I was pleased with the effort and aggressiveness in which he got it. And if you were there or watched the game, that guy didn't stick his face in again. But it was difficult because we lost possession of the ball that we did have it, and then at the same time they came back, and scored like on 3 successive possessions. But that didn't turn the tide. What turned the tide is we made some poor decisions once they scored, taking the ball out of bounds. We didn't go hard off our cuts and screens to get open. We just had a mental breakdown right there of not executing once they scored to get the ball and then try to beat their press. And it had nothing to really do with the White, although the point was we had the ball. Now we gave it back to them, and that was a turnover. But I wasn't disappointed with that. I was very pleased that we made an aggressive rebound, and it was just unfortunate we got the call. So
the other highlight we want to show, and then you and I talked about this after the game Saturday. At that point, yeah, we're down 11, but we came back. We cut it to 3, to 2 on several occasions. John, if you're ready with the other highlight. We have a breakaway for USI, and Matt Shepard is going to do his best to try to stop the shot, and you'll see the ball went in for the basket. An intentional foul was called on Matt, and again, a 3-point play becomes a 5-point deficit, and ultimately we couldn't come back from that. As a coach, obviously on a breakaway, you want to try to stop the basket, but what could have been done differently? Because it looked like he didn't go for the ball, but he tried to, in essence, shove the player out of the way and hope that he didn't make the shot.
Right. Well, and what you didn't see prior to that was that D'Angelo Woodall got a steal and made a layup at the other end. So everybody was running towards our end, and D makes a basket. Now all of a sudden they take it out quick, and now they're going the other way, and they threw it over the top. Matt, actually, we try to teach our kids to, follow the shots because, if everybody stops and D's in the open court and he misses, then, if somebody would have, really ran down the floor hard and maybe got a putback, we would have got the score. But D made the basket. What should have happened was, as Matt saw the floor, he should have seen several of our guys in front of him. And with D going in for a layup, although it wasn't wide open, he didn't have a whole lot of trouble. He should have stopped and made sure nobody was behind him. Well, what happened? He came running up real hard. D made it, and all of a sudden he realized he's kind of hung out to dry. So now they took the ball in, made a power dribble, and threw it over the top of him. What I would have rather seen him do was go in and make a hard foul and try to keep the guy from making the basket rather than grab him for an intentional foul. If you notice on the tape, though, Matt did grab him and hold him so that he didn't get hurt or whatever, which was a good play from that perspective, but it just wasn't the play we wanted at that time. Again, they got the basket, they made the free throws, they got the ball back out of bounds, but, those 3 points or whatever, didn't hurt us as much as, again, giving up another basket and then taking the ball out of bounds and giving up another basket by turning the ball over on their press. And that's really, what hurt us. Probably out of the 23 turnovers, we may have turned it over 8-9 times on their press with the pressure. And they're just so athletic. It seems like they've got 6 or 7 guys on the floor. They're very quick. Even when they get beat, they're quick to recover. And so that's the downfall that we had on Saturday was allowing them to really take advantage of maybe our lack of quickness, also their pressure in the open court and from their press. So each situation, yes, turned the ball over and went from our possession to their possession, but each possession in its own didn't beat us. It was what transpired of the follow-up that hurt us. And again, the turnovers and the missed free throws were what lost us the game, but both teams shot well. And I don't think it was bad defense. I think just everybody shot the ball well. We were 14 of 25 from 3. Nick Wise was 7 of 11. Brad was 3 of 7. So we shot the ball very well throughout the whole game and scored 70 points in the second half. we're only averaging about 73, so we got our average in the second half alone and outscored them 70-68. But what led from that, momentum builder for them really escalated, and that's what hurt us in those two different frames you showed.
We've got less than 2 minutes left, unfortunately. We've got two big road games this week. We go Thursday to Indianapolis and then Saturday to Northern Kentucky. Indianapolis, possibly the best first half we've played all year. When we played them a few weeks ago, we won that big game 80-72. Northern Kentucky, a team that we had to lead by 5 with 3:08 to go, and unfortunately got outscored by a bunch and lost 85-77. In 60 seconds or less, and I'm sorry we're just running out of time, a quick preview of these two games this weekend.
Well, Mike, I have a good feeling that Indianapolis is looking for some revenge on Thursday night because we beat them pretty bad here, especially in the first half, and then hung on. But they've kind of spiraled down in the last 6-7 games. They've only maybe won one game, and so they're looking to do anything and change anything. So I don't know what kind of team we'll see there, but we really can't worry about that too much. We'll cut film and have a scouting report again on what we did in the game, and go in there and just play at a high level. And again, on the road, you got to play a lot tougher. Northern Kentucky, obviously very, very good, has gotten beat a couple times too, and we really should have beat them. But again, that's like a lot of games, we had a lead and couldn't hold it. We're in our 2-week stretch right now where we've got Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So not a lot of prep time, not a lot of time to practice even, because you're spending all your energy in the games. You can't practice a lot. What we'll do is really now take off Sunday of this week, which we really don't do. We really come back and practice Sundays and then take off Mondays. But now we're going to practice on, take off Sunday, practice Monday, because we got a Tuesday game at home, and then go to UMSL, Missouri, St. Louis, and Quincy, which are very good at home, and UMSL just beat Kentucky Wesleyan. So this league is, just crazy right now, but we've got to just go in. We've got 7 games left, 1 game at a time, play as hard as we can, try to play as well as we can, and just keep improving like we're doing. And I'm pretty pleased. We just need to play 40-minute games right now, and we know what we don't do, we know what we do, and we got to fix the don'ts and keep trying to do the do's that have allowed us to play much better since the second half of the year.
We wish you well, and we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Mike.
Doug Knoll has been our guest today, head men's basketball coach here at IPFW. That's it for this edition of Mastodon Spotlight. As always, we thank you for tuning in to see what's going on with IPFW athletics. Stay tuned. Arnie Ball returns from wherever. I think it was Italy. And he and Mark Franchi will talk about their weekend matches in Pennsylvania. That's next on the Arnie Ball Show. And we invite you to come back next week and join us for another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. But until then, this is Mike Ma saying have a great week and go Dons. Hi again, everybody. I'm Mike Maas. Welcome to another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. Well, as I said a moment ago, it's hard to believe that we only have 2 weeks left in the college basketball season here at IPFW. Our guest this week is the head women's coach here at IPFW, Carl Semesco. And Carl, can you believe there's only 2 weeks left?
Well, it's a long season. Unfortunately, we only have 2 weeks left because we're not eligible to compete in a postseason tournament, but we're going to try and make the most of these 2 weeks, hopefully continue to improve as a basketball team.
When we talk about the length of a season, and you started practice way back, I believe, was it October 15th? Or October 16th?
We started on the 17th.
17th of October, and here we are into February already. How do you pace yourself?
I'm not sure that you really do. You just kind of attack each day and try to improve and try to get the most out of your players every day. And you know, it's hard to concentrate and focus on things for that period of time, but if you just take it on an individual day basis, what do we need to get accomplished today? What do we need to get accomplished before Thursday if we're going to be successful, or before Saturday, depending on when your games are? That's kind of the way we break it down. We're not looking at, all right, we got a 3-week stretch, or here we got 4 weeks, where we're always kind of looking at, well, what do we have to get in today, and what has to be in before the next game, and what do we need to concentrate on, what have we been doing well, and what areas do we need to improve upon if we're going to be successful.
Well, I commend you now, and I'll commend you again in 2 weeks, the job you and Bob have done with this team, an undermanned team with only 8 players, but we'll talk more about that in a couple of weeks. Right now, let's shift our attention to what happened last week on the court. Following a very tough loss to Southern Indiana, you had to hit the road last week, and you first went to Indianapolis to take on the Greyhounds, and that was followed up with a matchup with the defending national champion Northern Kentucky squad. Let's talk about Indianapolis first, and we've talked many times in the last 2 seasons. They've given IPFW fits. Talk about the mindset after a tough loss to Southern Indiana, where they scored the last 13 points of the game, to come from behind and beat you, getting ready for a team that you've always had difficult times and we've had controversial endings. What was the mindset and the preparation like going into last Thursday's game at Indy?
Well, it was a frustrating loss against Southern Indiana. Obviously, you're playing a top 20 team, and we had them on the ropes. We're up 7 in the last few minutes, and we weren't able to convert anything down the stretch, and they took the lead in the last minute, and you lose a game that you really think that you should have won. And so that was frustrating, but at the same time we knew we had to move on and get ready for Indianapolis, who is a team that, as you said, has been our nemesis, where we've had an opportunity to win every time. Prior to last Thursday, we had played them 3 times, and we had an opportunity to win each of those games, only to come up short at the very end on the last shot of the game. So our focus was that we were the better team, and don't let it come down to a call at the end of the game, or don't let it come down to one shot at the end of the game. Put yourself in position where you don't have to worry about that at the end of the game. The first time we played them, I thought we were the better team, but we shot the ball poorly, and we had too many defensive breakdowns. And in this game, we shot the ball much better, and we had far fewer breakdowns than we had in the first time that we met them.
Talk about the defensive effort that your team gave. Final score, by the way, was 67-51. You came in with a 16-point road victory. You jumped out to a big lead, 38-20 at the halftime. But looking at a couple of the numbers, defensively you held them to 37% shooting from the floor and only 11% shooting, 1 of 9 from three-point range. Talk about the defense, which I know is something that you and Bob have worked very hard with the team this year.
Well, we knew what they were hoping to do, and we knew their sets and what they wanted to run, and we prepared our players for it, and we really wanted to take things away that they like to go to. And I thought we did a nice job of really eliminating passes for them that they need to run their offense. And several times we had them running low on the shot clock, so they had to force shots at the end of the shot clock, and obviously that's reflected in their shooting percentage. So we did a real nice job defensively. It was one of our better efforts defensively on the year, and everybody chipped in and did their part, and that's the big thing. I think the first time we played them, most people were doing their assignment, and then one player would break down, and then you give up a layup instead of forcing a shot, forcing a wild shot at the end of the shot clock. So this time I thought we were solid throughout the 30-second shot clock. They almost never got early shots in the shot clock, and they had to take tough shots. So obviously that put us in early in the game they were making some tough shots, and I was telling our team, relax, they're taking tough shots right now. Those aren't going to go in all game, and they hit a cold spell the last 10 minutes of the half because we forced tough shots. So I was very pleased with our defensive effort, and I was very encouraged when I saw how many tough shots we were able to force.
Looking at some of the individual numbers, Trish Fleming, who was the leading scorer in the conference, had 24 points. Amy Gerald's 15 points and a team-high 7 rebounds. And then the captain, Jamie Holderman, chipped in with 11 points and 4 rebounds. Amy's come on of late.
Yeah, Amy can score for us, and we need her to score. Part of that game, Indianapolis played us in a triangle and 2, obviously, to take away Trish and Jamie. So we need somebody else who's going to come up and step up and hit big shots or take the ball to the basket. And she's our third option right now. And you know, when she doesn't play well, you know, she didn't shoot the ball well or play well against Northern Kentucky, you know, that's a big hit for us. We need somebody else, and you know, hopefully it's her to step up and provide some scoring and be another option offensively that defenses have to worry about.
Well, you mentioned Northern Kentucky, and after the big win at Indianapolis, you headed down near Cincinnati. And Northern Kentucky is playing very well right now. And unfortunately, you were their latest victims. They shot 63% from the floor in the first half, and they jumped out to a 40-23 lead. And if my memory is correct, when they played up here, they had a big lead, and I believe it was 40-24. Something about the first 20 minutes against NKU. Talk about that ball game briefly.
Well, they really, we were never in the game there. They took us out of the game very early. They established what they wanted to establish, and you know, we could never really get things going, and we really couldn't stop them. So, I mean, they were a far superior team on that day. We didn't seem to have the same emotion that we had for Indy. I don't know if we didn't believe we could win, or if Indy just took it out of us because we were so excited about that game. But I was hoping that we would come in with a better effort than we showed against Northern Kentucky. I mean, you could have a great effort against Northern Kentucky and not win. I mean, Northern Kentucky's only lost 1 out of their last 50-some games at home. But still, I didn't think that we gave them the competition that we should have, and I was disappointed by that. Defensively, they controlled it by dribbling right by us, and their defense really was excellent. I mean, they weren't going to allow any easy shots, and unfortunately, when we did get easy shots, we probably missed 11, 12 layups in that game. And if you're going to beat Northern Kentucky, when you get your good shots, you got to finish, because you're not going to get a good shot every time down the court against them. They're too good defensively. So when you get an opportunity to get some layups and some open looks, you really have to shoot a high percentage of those and make them if you're going to stay in the game. And we didn't. We shot a very low percentage, and combine that with the fact that they played very, very well, it led to a game where really we weren't very competitive.
Now, final score, unfortunately, was 82-48. Trish with a game-high 24 points, one of only 2 players in double figures for IPFW, and Lindsay Wernz was the other, chipping in with 10. As you and I briefly talked about before we started filming, Jamie Holderman, only 5 shots on the floor, unsuccessful on all of them, and only 2 points for the game for the number 2 scorer in the conference. Quite a shock.
Well, obviously teams know that they're going to try and take away Trish and Jamie whenever we play, and you know, they really wanted to limit Jamie's touches. So we have to do a good job screening for Jamie, and Jamie has to do a good job getting off screens and reading screens, and then, you know, when she does get open, we got to give her the basketball. And I think we kind of broke down in all 3 areas. I thought, you know, we didn't do as good a job screening for her. I didn't think when she was open that we did as good a job getting her the ball. And you know, I think Jamie got frustrated a little bit and wasn't working quite as hard to get open as she normally does after not getting the ball for a while. So, you know, they can be frustrating when you play that team when they defend as well as they do, but you got to keep working and working and keep working to get your shots. And you know, it was a tough situation. Hopefully, you know, we got 5 games. Hopefully we can bounce back and play some good basketball down the stretch.
Well, we're going to take a break, and as you said, when we come back, we do have 5 games left in the season. And we'll take a look at the conference standings and at those 5 games as well. And that's when Mastodon Spotlight returns in just a moment.
dancing for you, Fido, for that nice new car that won't go. And all your car guy says is, I don't know. It's the new Consumer Action Handbook, free from the government. Listen, with this puppy you'll get repairs repaired, wrongs righted. Look, companies, government agencies, names, numbers. Now nobody will treat you like a dog. Call for yours toll-free, 1-888-8-PUEBLO, or log on. It's a consumer's new best friend.
Dr. Matthew Kubik is an architectural engineering professor at IPFW who utilizes his experience to teach his students one-on-one.
So it's really shoulder-to-shoulder learning that we're looking at problems together for the first time.
Dr. Kubik also is the director of the honors program at IPFW. His ability to teach on a personal level allows him to educate to the needs of his honors students.
They want more conversation. They want a closer contact with professors. They want interactive learning in the classroom.
He is thankful for the advantages of a combined classroom of young students and students who are returning to college after years in the workplace.
That mix of students creates a classroom environment that is exciting, that's vibrant.
IPFW, the right school, right here, right now.
Welcome back to Mastodon Spotlight. Our topic this week, women's basketball, and our guest is the head women's coach here at IPFW, Carl Semesco. And Carl, last week is now history. As we mentioned at the beginning of the program, we have 2 weeks left, 5 games in those 2 weeks. Before we look ahead to those 5 games, let's take a brief look at the conference standings, and then I'll ask what you think may happen down the stretch. In the conference, Northern Kentucky leads with a 13-2 record, followed by Southern Indiana and Bellarmine tied at 12-3. SIU Edwardsville in 4th spot with 11-4 mark. Missouri St. Louis 8-7. Then a 3-way tie between IPFW, Quincy, and Indianapolis, all at 7-8. Followed by Lewis at 5-10, Kentucky Wesleyan 4-11, Wisconsin Parkside 3-12, and as we tape the show on Tuesday, tonight's opponent St. Joseph's in the cellar with a 1-14 mark. Before we talk about St. Joseph's game, the top 4 teams are going to do some battle in the final 2 weeks, including Southern Indiana taking on Bellarmine. I believe that's tonight, and no, that's later. That's the last week of the year, well, weekend of the season. Yep. But we've got the Southern Indiana, Northern Kentucky, Bellarmine, and SIU Edwardsville. Though Northern Kentucky's in the driver's seat, how do you see it turning out?
Well, I see Northern Kentucky in the driver's seat. I think they're the best team in the league. They slipped up with a loss at Quincy, although Quincy plays very well at home. But I really don't think I see. Northern Kentucky has a game at Bellarmine, I believe, which could be very difficult, but I still see them being the best team in the conference, and I would expect them to be the #1 seed as they go into the conference tournament. Bellarmine's probably the 2nd best team in our conference, so I would expect them to be 1-2, and then you have Southern Indiana and Edwardsville be looking at the 3 seed.
And before my tongue got all twisted, it's Southern Indiana and SIU Edwardsville playing tonight.
Yeah.
Bellarmine and Northern Kentucky play Saturday, and Southern Indiana and Bellarmine finish on the final weekend of the season.
Yeah, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Southern Indiana is at Edwardsville tonight.
Right.
And Edwardsville has only lost 1 game at home all year, and that was to us. We're the only team to beat Edwardsville at Edwardsville. That was early in the season. So that's going to be a tough game for Southern Indiana. Southern Indiana escaped when they were at our place. That's unfortunate. But I think they're going to have a tough time at Edwardsville.
Well, let's turn our attention back to the IPFW schedule. And though the show will be seen on Wednesday and Friday night, as we tape it, it is Tuesday, and we have a game tonight here at the Hilliard Gate Sports Center against St. Joseph, a team that you defeated at their place earlier in the year, 81-70. Though they've only won 1 game in a conference this year, you can't overlook an opponent in the GOVC.
Oh no, I hope we're not doing that. I'm preparing because I know this is going to be a tough game. I don't think it's going to be a tough game. I know it's going to be a tough game. you know, St. Joe's has some real weaknesses. They really can't defend inside very well because they're very small, and teams with some big kids have really given them trouble, but we're not a team that really scores a lot from post-ups, and our big kids aren't real big scorers. They're more defenders. So, you know, what other teams have been using to exploit them really isn't something that we have. So they have to feel like they match up pretty well against us, and I'm sure they feel like they match up better against us than anybody because of you know, the size factor and where we score from compared to where most teams score from. So the other thing is they like to take the ball off the dribble a lot, and we've had some trouble with some teams that try to drive to the basket and try to break you down off the dribble. We've had trouble staying in front of people. So I'm sure they're looking at this as the second half of the first game that we played, they outscored us by 12 and scored 48 points and a half, breaking us down off the dribble. So I know it's not going to be an easy game. This is not an easy matchup for us, and you know, hopefully we're going to have to play well. We're going to have to shoot the ball well. We're going to have to get some second shot opportunities, and you know, the record you can throw away because it's much different matchups than what they're used to seeing, and it's favorable for them.
In terms of preparation, the fact that this is a Tuesday game when you've been used to Thursday, Saturday, how did that mess up, or did it mess up the preparation for this game?
Well, I mean, it messes up the preparation, but it's even for everybody. St. Joe's in the same situation as we are, and we both. That's the good thing about it being the travel partners. We're both coming off a road trip where you're gone from Thursday through Saturday, and then obviously you have to give them one day off, which was either Sunday or Monday. So you only had really one day of practice before your next game, and you know your kids are tired because they've been on the road, and really, and it's late in the season, but both teams will be in the same situation. So you just gotta prepare short. Don't leave your kids on the court too long, and hopefully you can get a good effort. And it's going to be tough for both us and St. Joe's because right after that game we go on the road again. If you're gonna, and we've had that for 2 years now, where we've had like a 5-game road trip and something like that. And I think we're not in the conference anymore, but that's something that they need to look at. Is that's got to be balanced out a little bit, because I think it's a huge advantage if you're going to have. If you're going to be at home on the 3-game in 1 week stretch, if you have 3 home games, or maybe you just have the game with your travel partner on the road, and then you have 2 home games to back that up, that's a lot different than, you know, St. Joe's has it worse than us. They got to travel to us, and then they have to travel to Missouri, St. Louis, and Quincy this weekend. I mean, that's a lot to ask of a team, I think.
Well, speaking of the road trip and speaking of Missouri St. Louis, that will be your Thursday night foe on the road. Bad memories when you played them here. It was a game we televised. You had an 11-point halftime lead and an early 14-point lead early in the second half. Unfortunately, they came back and they won 64-57. It's payback time. Thoughts about that game?
Well, Missouri St. Louis, that's another game that, unfortunately, we've had a few games where we've had opportunities to win at the end, and we really haven't done it. And you know, that's what's put us in the situation where we're in the conference. I think we could be in much better standing right now, but we haven't won the close games. So, you know, Missouri St. Louis and us are pretty equally matched. They're at home this time, so that works in their favor. But you know, hopefully we can handle their traps a little bit better and their zone defense a little bit better. And although, you know, after watching the tape, we got good shots, but we went very cold. So hopefully we can shoot the ball at a better percentage, and if we don't shoot the ball well, get some more second opportunities with some offensive rebounds. But it should be a pretty competitive game.
Well, we'll finish that up with the final road game of the year, Saturday night at Quincy. And when the two teams played here back on January the 18th, you jumped out to a big lead, 33-19 at the half, and you went on to win the game 64-51. How difficult is it? This is the second time around, obviously, for all the teams that we're going to face the rest of the way. How difficult is it round 2 versus round 1?
Well, I'm not sure that it's really any more difficult just a matter of really getting your team ready to prepare again and getting them motivated about each game. I think it's, we're trying real hard for that here, but you look at a team like Quincy or Lewis, who we end the season with, or Missouri St. Louis, and they're really battling for position in that tournament, where they're going to get seeded and things like that. And we know we don't have that tournament, so we're kind of in a little bit different situation in terms of, our motivation has to come from within, that we just want to be successful and that we want to win and we want to play good basketball all the time. When that's got to be our reward, where I'm sure, if I were one of those coaches, I'd say, hey, we don't want to like Lewis, we don't want to be left out of the tournament. We need this as a win. I mean, there's a lot of external motivation there for teams. So, a lot of times you do that down the stretch as a coach to let them see the carrot, hey, we need to get in the tournament, or, hey, we could be in the top half of the seeds of the tournament if we can win. Well, we need to motivate ourselves just that we want to be successful and we want to win as many games as we can.
Well, following that, hopefully it'll be a 2-game road winning streak. And I got to be optimistic.
Yeah.
It'll be a 3-game winning streak when we get ready, because we won't see each other for 2 weeks for the final week of the season. Games at home against Wisconsin Parkside and Lewis. Parkside, the first time around, a 79-67 win for IPFW. In that game, Jamie had 31 points and Trish had 24. The fact that it's the final 2 games, the final 2 home games, how much of a factor might that be?
Well, it's hard to say at this point. I mean, the mood on our team shifts. We're a pretty young team, so it shifts very often, and it's really hard to keep them going in the same direction that we want them to be going all the time. Just because we're not that old, hopefully that we'll be looking at those last 2 games as our tournament and our opportunity to maybe knock somebody out of the tournament, but they're our 2 last chances to play this season, so hopefully no one's going to be holding anything back, and we're going to try to go out. Not many teams get to end their season with a win. So hopefully we can end our season with a win.
As our illustrious co-producer John mentioned in my ear, the final 2 games also in the GLVC. Have you mentioned that to the team at all? In fact, this is our last hurrah in this conference.
Well, we've mentioned that you want to win the last time you play somebody. You want to always have the bragging rights, so to speak. But the GLVC, it'd be different if we were in the tournament, I think, or something like that. But last go around, you just want to end with a win. You want to beat the team the last time you play them. I don't think anybody's thinking, of any memories of GLVC or anything like that. We're just, whoever it is, Parkside, Lewis, whoever we're playing at that given day, we want to be prepared and we want to give our best effort to win on that day.
Speaking of best effort, on that last day, it will be a home game. It'll be a game we'll be broadcasting here on College 56 Sports. Lewis will be the opponent. And again, that infamous word I bring back, payback. When you played them the first time, they jumped out to a big first half lead and ultimately won 72-68. So you got a lot of motivational factors for that final game of the year, final game in the conference, payback against a team that defeated you earlier. And finally, the final game for 2 seniors, and if we can take in the final moments of our show today, briefly talk about the contributions that Jamie Holderman and Laura Douglas have made, not just this year, but through their careers.
Well, I wasn't here when Laura Douglas last played. That was the previous coach. And this year she's just, come in midway through the season and actually has a year of eligibility left if she chose to use it, which she I don't know that she'll choose to use it. She came mainly to help us out this year because we were shorthanded on bodies. But obviously she's been a good defensive presence for us, and we need her down the stretch to provide some more defense. Hopefully she can get on the offensive board some and get some putbacks for us and contribute in that way and continue to help us in practice. And Jamie Holderman over the last 2 seasons has been, no one over the last 2 seasons has scored more points than Jamie Holderman in our conference. So she's going to be our all-time, or at least second maybe, depending on how the season finishes, 3-point shooter, most 3-point shots made, and she's only been here 2 seasons. You know, she's up there in free throw percentage all time for IPFW, and you know, she's been a very consistent scorer for us and somebody that we've really needed offensively. And you know, hopefully these are her last 5 games, so we would like to win as many of those as possible. And you know, hopefully she has 5 good games down the stretch here, because we will need her to have some.
Well, we wish them and you the best of luck for these final 5 games. And hopefully 2 weeks from today we will visit with you, and hopefully Bob as well. We'd like to have him come on when we wrap up the season in 2 weeks. But good luck these final 5 games.
Thank you.
Carlos Amesco has been our guest on this week's edition of Mastodon Spotlight, the head women's basketball coach here at the university. That will do it for this edition of the show. We thank you as always for tuning in. I want to remind you a couple of quick notes this week. A special on-site report by Cracker Jack cameraman Dan Westrick from Ohio State as the Volleydons take on Ohio State this Saturday night. And you will see the highlights next week on the Don Sports Review. Also, this Sunday night at 7 p.m. on College 56 Sports, we will be replaying the men's basketball game against Southern Indiana. And that was a thrilling game, went down to the end. Final score 110-108. I won't tell you who won. And we also invite you to come back next week when we return for another edition of Mastodon Spotlight. But until then, this is Mike Maas saying have a great week, and go Dons.